Hello everyone, today is the 24th video of my database management systems practical video series. Today I'm going to complete the 24th question in my question set. Let's go to our database management system question list. Here you can see under day 10, here's the question 24 and here's the first one. But before reading the question, I have to tell you, if you didn't watch the previous videos I posted, it's better you watch those videos first and then come to this one. Otherwise you will not understand the question, because we are continuing a question started from question 17, and in this question we are answering for the question we created using a database we created in question 18. So if you didn't watch those videos, you have to watch them first. And let's continue our video. Here's the first part of the question 24. Find out the details of the student who got the lowest mark in the subject of science in the second term examination and the class in which he is studying. Okay, in this case we have to find the details of a student and the class of that student who recorded the lowest mark for the science subject in second term test. Okay, in this case you can see there are two conditions. We have to find the there are three conditions. We have to find the lowest mark, and then in the science subject, and then in the second term examination. So let me go to our Hades SQL browser. Now you can see we are answering for the question using the database we created called exam mark DB, and here are the tables inside that database. You know, if you watch my previous videos, we stored all the marks of the students recorded in the terms or the examinations they faced, and the subjects, also the subjects of those students, and we recorded those details in student exam mark record. Let me show you the table. Here's the table. First I'm going to search that data from the table, student exam mark record table. So let me clear this one. You know, we have to write a select query in order to get the result. So here's the first one, select. For now I need all the details, so here's the asterisk mark, and from here's the database exam mark DB and student exam mark record table. Here's the query. Let's execute this one, and it will show all the records that are recorded in that particular table. Now we have to write our conditions. There are two conditions I like to write. The science subject, so I'm mentioning the subject, and then the term. So we have to mention the term. You know, the details of the term and the subject are stored in separate or different tables. Here's the exam term table. Let me show you the table. That's the table which records the term and the term name and the examination date, and also the subject table. That's the table which record the details about the subject, which is the subject ID and the subject name. In the student exam mark record table, you can see only the subject IDs and the exam term IDs are shown in the record. So in this case we have two options. We can use join queries in order to join these three tables together, or we can use the subquery method. So in this case I'm going to use the subquery method. First you can see we have to write or we have to match the subject ID and then find the ID of the subject science. So in this case here's the where clause. That's the keyword we are using before mentioning or writing a condition in our query. So here's the first one. First we have to mention the attribute name we are going to filter in the main table, which is the student exam mark record table. The attribute I'm going to filter is subject ID. So in the student exam mark record table, here's the subject ID. Let me put this attribute name within two gray question marks, and here's the equal. I'm comparing or comparing the ID which will come as the result of the subquery and match that ID into the attribute in the student exam mark record table, the subject ID. Okay, here's the subquery. In this case, we are writing another select query to find the ID from the subject table using the subject name. So here we don't need all the details, we need only the subject ID. Okay, here I'm mentioning the subject table. In the subject table, here's the attribute subject ID. We need only that ID to show in our result, and here I'm mentioning the database and the table. Here's the database exam mark DB, and here's the table subject, and where clause now the condition to find the ID of the subject science. So here I'm mentioning the attribute subject name in the subject table and in the subject name. Here subject name, it should be equal to science. That here's the value science. Let's execute this one. You can see in the subject ID attribute, only the record belongs to the ID number 2 is shown in the student mark record result. Let me show you the subject table, and here you can see the science, the ID of the science subject is number 2 in the subject table. So that means we write one condition and then it's not enough. We have to we only need the science subject record in second term test. So here I am mentioning the term, I'm using the AND keyword, and then here's the attribute in the main table, the student exam mark record table. We are comparing that attribute, that values in that attribute, the exam term ID to the results that will come from or outputted from the subquery to the exam term table. Here select, we are writing this query to the exam term table, which is the table which records the details of the exams. So we can find the ID using the term name. Here we need only the term ID as the output. So let me change this one, exam mark DB, and here's the attribute, sorry, not exam mark DB, exam term and term ID. I need only the ID. We don't have to mention the table or database name again and again, but it's better you mention that one. The query will be more accurate when you specify the database and the table when you are mentioning a value or attribute in this query. So in the exam term table, we need only the term ID, and here I am mentioning the table before that database, and then the table exam term, and in that table we are searching the data using the term name. So exam term table, and here's the term name. It should be equal to second term test. second term. Okay, now we can execute this one. Let's execute this one. You can see only the data of the science subject in second term test are shown in the result. Now we just have to find the minimum or the lowest mark recorded within these details. So I'm changing the asterisk marks to the keyword mean. That's the keyword we are using to find the lowest mark recorded in an attribute. So here I'm mentioning the attribute in the student exam mark record table, and we are sorting the data or finding the minimum value in the mark attribute. So here's the mark attribute. Okay, sorry, let's execute this one. You can see the minimum mark recorded to this for the science subject in second term test is 45.52. Now we can use this minimum value to find the record in the student exam mark DB belongs to this minimum value. For that we can write another query. I am creating a new blank query tab and write a separate query. Let me show you that one. Select asterisk marks from exam mark DB and the same student exam mark record table, and where here's the condition. I am searching these details from using the mark attribute. So we can input the minimum value when we are filtering the data. So where in the student exam mark record table, here's the attribute mark. It should be equal to it's okay if you use in keyword or equal. I told you what is the difference. For now I'm using the keyword in, and we can put the previous query we wrote into these two brackets and get the output out of that query. So let me copy and paste that one in the main query tab, and then let's put the query. This is the old query we tried to find the minimum value and put that within these two brackets. Let's execute this one. You can see the records belong to the minimum mark recorded in the science subject in second term test is shown in the result. Now we don't need all the details. We know the minimum mark. We know the minimum mark and what is the subject and then the term. So we don't need the IDs. We need only the index number. So we can find the student details out from using that index number. So I'm changing the asterisk marks to the student number in the student exam mark record table. Here's the student index number. So it will output the student index number. You can see it's STU_003. Now we can use this index number to search the student out from the student table, which is the table which records the details of the student. And you can see only the class ID is shown in this student table, but we have to show the class of the student 2 in our result. Here you can see in the class table, that's the table which records the details, so names of the class. In this case, you can see we have to join these two tables together. So we have to use the join method to join this table and then find the record using our index number. So let me create another new tab, new query tab, and let's join these two tables and then input our index number, the index number which records the lowest mark in science subject for second term test. We can input that number, we can filter that number in this joined two tables, student and class table. So here I am joining the two tables. Select for now all the details, and then from here's the first table in the exam mark DB. You know how to join two tables. Here's the first one. I am joining the class table using inner join. I'm using inner join. You can use self join or inner join. In this case, I'm using inner join. And here's the second one. In the exam mark DB is the second table. I am joining the student table, and here's the condition. Now here's the connection between these two tables. You have to mention the attribute which has the same data in both of these tables, so we can compare and join the tables in a corresponding order. So here's the first one. In the class table, the class ID is equal to the in the student of the student table, the index number, because that's the not the index number, the class ID. Okay, because that's the attribute which foreign from the class table, so the class ID. Okay, let's execute this one. You can see both class ID, both class details for the class name and the student details are shown in our result. Now we can change this asterisk mark to find the or specify the attributes we want to show in our table, the result. So let's change this one. We need the index number of the student, so that's in our student table, and here's the first attribute, index number. And then again in the student table we need the first name in the student table, the last name, and student table, the gender of the student table, the contact number of the student. Now those are the attributes we want in the student table. We don't need the class ID. Usually the users don't use IDs to find the details. It's not very user friendly, so we have to show the text values. So here's the attribute which records the text values. Contact number is the last one, and now here's the last attribute we want from the class table, which is the class name. So in the class table we need the class name, not the ID, class name. Let's execute this one. You can see the index number, first name, last name, gender, contact number, and the class of the student are shown in the result. But within these records we need only the student who record the lowest mark in the science subject in second term test. So let's copy this one. Let me clear this query and then let's write a condition to filter these details. So here's the where clause, and within these tables, these two tables, we are searching the attribute in the student table, the index number, that's the attribute we are searching, and it should be equal to the result which will output from the query. This is the previous query we recorded. we wrote to find the ID, index ID number of the lowest mark. So let me copy this one. It's a very long query. Let's put that query within these two brackets, and that will output the lowest mark, the index number of the lowest mark recorded to the science subject in the second term test. Now you can see this is the detail of the student who recorded the lowest mark, which is Sachitra Vikramasinghe. That's the student who recorded the lowest mark to the science subject in second term test. Let me show you the whole query. This is the whole query we used to get that answer. Now we completed our first part of the question. Okay, arrange the marks obtained by all the students for the science subject held on 2023-15 in ascending order. Okay, in this case we have to find a group of records, not a specific one. We have to find a bunch of records and then make order that records in an ascending order. Okay, let's go to our HDSQL browser again. In this case, we have to find the student marks for the science subject held on this date. So let's go to our HDSQL browser and clear this old one. Select. You know what we have to do. First, I'm going to show you the results or the marks. All the records in the table, we recorded the marks of the student, which is the student exam mark record table. So I need all the details for now. So asterisk from, here's the database name, exam mark DB, and student exam mark record table, and here are all the records in our student exam mark DB. You can see the mark attribute. That's the attribute which records all the marks. Within these details, we have to filter the marks belong to the let me go to the question, belong to the examination held on this date 2023-15 and then the science subject. So let's find those details. I'm using the where clause. Here's the where clause, where with the where keyword, and here's the first condition. You can see there are two conditions. We have to find the ID of the subject and then the ID of the exam term. So first I'm going to write a condition to find the subject ID of the science subject. So here's the attribute in the main table, the subject student exam mark record table. So student exam mark record table, here's the attribute. We are searching the subject ID, and it should be equal to the result outputted from this query. Here's the subquery, select not asterisk mark, we need only the subject ID. So let me select that one. In the subject table, the subject ID. Okay, and here I'm mentioning the database in the table name, exam mark record table, and subject table. Here's the where clause. When finding the ID or finding the ID of the subject, we can use the subject name. So in the subject table, the subject name should be equal to, here's the value, science. Let's execute this one. You can see we find the records to the records belong to the science subject. Here you can see the subject ID in these records is number 2, and in the subject table I showed you in the previous one, the subject ID of the science subject is number 2. And then here's the second condition. We have to use the keyword and here's the attribute in the main table. In the main table, which is the student exam mark record table, and here's the attribute, the term ID. Let me show you the term table. Here in the exam term table, you can see the also the exam date also recorded in this very table, the exam term table, and using that we can find the term ID. So in the exam term table, the exam term ID in the main table should be equal to the data outputted from this subquery. Here's the subquery to the exam term table to output the ID of the science of the exam held on that day. So we need only the ID, the exam in the exam term table, the term ID, and here I'm mentioning the database exam term table, exam mark DB, and then exam term, where here's the condition. When finding the ID, the exam date should be equal to this ID, this date. Let me go to the question. 2020 3rd 50. Okay, 2020 3rd 50. Okay, let's execute this one. Okay, you can see the details are shown here. Those are the details of the science subject for the exam held on 2020 3rd 15, and these are the records, actually the marks of the students. Now you can see within these attributes there are no they are not very useful. Only the marks can readable, but other attributes are showing the index number and the IDs of the subject and the term. In this case, a regular user can't use this data efficiently to find the answer. You can see if you want to find the name or the details of the student, you have to get the ID or pick the ID of this result, and then go to the student table and then find the details of that student. And if you want the subject, you have to go to the subject table and find the details. That's not very user friendly method. So in this case, we can use, other than this method, we can use the join table method. We can join these tables which have the details of our students, and then write a condition to filter those details. So let me go to another table, another query tab, and let's use that method. I'm going to combine these 5 tables together, and let's find the answer. So here I'm combining the tables. Select for now all the details from, here's the first table, exam. This is the database exam DB. In the database, I am joining the class table. In this case, I'm using the inner join method again. Inner join in the exam mark DB, and here's the table. I'm joining the student table with the class table, and here's the condition or the order. The class ID, the class ID in the class table should be equal to the class ID in the student table. Okay, let's execute this one. Okay, here are the details, and then let's connect another table in a join, and in the exam mark DB, and here's the table. I'm joining the student exam mark record table on this is the condition. In the student table, in the student exam mark record table, the student index number should be equal to the index number in the student table. Okay, let's execute this one too. Okay, you can see here are all the records. Now let's join there are only 2 tables left to join to this list, and here's the next one, inner join. I'm joining the subject table, so exam mark DB and subject table. Okay, on this is the condition. The subject ID in the student exam mark record table should be equal to the subject ID in the subject table. Okay, let's execute this one too. Okay, there are no errors in our query yet. And let's join our last table in a join. I'm joining the exam mark DB, the exam term table. Okay, on is the connection. The student exam mark record table, the exam term ID should be equal to the term ID in exam term table. So here we combine all 5 tables together. Here are all the details, but within these details we need only the records of the student who face to the science subject on this date. So now we don't need to use the subquery method. We can directly call the tables, because all the tables are joined together in a corresponding order. So that means we can directly call, or we can directly use the where clause to call the to filter the data from separate tables, because all the tables are working as a single table because we use the join method. Now here's the first condition. We need only the details of the science subject. Let me verify that from the question. You can see the science subject and then the exam date. We have to use those details to filter these data. So here's the first one in the subject table. The subject name should, we don't have need to compare the subject ID. We can directly filter the details from the subject name. Subject name should be equal to, it's better you put the attribute name within 2 grey question marks. Let me do that part. And here's the value. The science name should be, the subject name should be equal to science. Let's execute this one. You can see only the records of science subject is shown in our result. Now we have to define our next condition, the last condition, the date of the exam. So the date recorded in the exam term table. So in the exam term table is the attribute exam date, and it should be equal to this date 2020 13. Okay, let's go to, no, not 10, it's 15. let's execute this one, and you can see here are the final results which showing the records of the student who faced to the science subject in the in this for the exam held on this date. Okay, now we have to you can see there are many redundant attributes. You can see the IDs, and they are duplicated in our result, but for a regular user the ID is not very useful to find the answer. So we can wash or filter the attributes by changing the the asterisk marks, and specify the records we want. So first I'm going to I need the index number of the student in the student table, and then first name and last name, and then the gender, and then the contact number of the student, and then the class of the student. That's the class name recorded in the class table, so we have to mention that one, class name. Okay, and then the subject name. So here's the subject name. The detail record in the subject table. So in the subject table, subject name and mark. So in the student exam mark record table, the mark, and for the last one we have to mention the term name. So in the exam term table, term name, and it's better we mention the term date of the exam. Okay, here are all the attributes we want. Let's execute this one. You can see only the necessary details are shown in our record. Now we have to order these details by ascending order. So for that I'm using the keyword order by. That's the keyword we use to order the details of the result, and we have to give it a attribute to arrange the order. So I'm using the mark attribute to arrange the order. Here's the keyword order by. Order by, and here I'm mentioning the attribute I want to arrange. I want to use to arrange the order. This attribute, the details in this attribute I'm mentioning will be arranged in the ascending order, and automatically it will arrange the records joined to that or connect to that database. Connect to that record. So here's the order by keyword, and then here I'm mentioning the attribute. I'm arranging the mark attribute, and here I'm mentioning the method I want to arrange these records. I need the ascending order. You can use to represent the ascending order, you can use the keyword ASC to ascending order, and if you want to arrange these details in a descending order, you can use DESC, descending order. For now I'm using the ascending order, which is ASC, and let's execute this one. Look what happened to our result. You can see the result change to ascending order. You can see on the top in the first record, the lowest mark in the result set is 10.5, and the maximum mark in this result set is 85. That means we arrange these details in an ascending order. Okay, we completed the second part of the question, and let's move on to the third one. Find information of all the students who obtained marks between 40 and 80 in the mathematics subject of the examination held on this date. Okay, now again you can see we have to show all the details. So that means we have to use the joining method. We have to join all 5 tables together and then apply these conditions to filter our details, or filter our result. So let's go to our ADSQL browser again. Let me show you the whole query. This is the whole query we used to get these details. Now I am let me close this query tab. We don't need that one. Okay, now I'm going to connect or combine the 5 tables again. So select for now all the details from, here's the first table. Sorry, we have to mention the database name, exam mark DB, and I'm joining the class table first, and then here's the joining method. I'm using inner join method, inner join, and here's the second table, exam mark DB, and student table, and here's the connection in the class ID in the class table should be equal to the class ID in the student table. Okay, let's execute this one. Okay, here are the records. Now let's combine our other tables. Here's the inner join method, and here's the next table, first database, and then the table. I'm student exam mark record table, and here's the condition. The index number in the student table should be equal to the index number in the student exam mark record table. Okay, here are the details. Now let's combine other 2 tables. Inner join, here's the first one, exam mark DB. In the database, I'm joining the subject table on the subject ID in the student exam mark record table should be equal to the subject ID in the subject table. Okay. Okay, now there's only one table left to join. That's exam term table. So inner join exam mark DB and exam term table. Here's the connection on the term ID in student exam mark record table should be equal to the exam term term ID in the exam term table. Okay, you can see all the details are joined together. Now I'm specifying the attributes we want to show in our result, because we don't need all the IDs in this result, otherwise the result will be complicated. Here I'm specifying the attributes. First one in the student table, the student index number, and again student table, you know what we have to do. We just did that in the previous part of the question. Student last name, student gender, student contact number. That will be enough, and we have to show the class name. So in the class table, class name, and now it's better we show the subject name. So here's the subject name, it's in the subject table. In the subject table, subject name, and then let's show the mark. So in the student exam mark record table, the mark and the exam name, the exam name or the term name and the exam date. So in the exam term table, term name, and again exam term table, exam date. Okay, here are all the queries, all the attributes we want in our result. You can see the result. Now we can filter these results or records using the where clause. Okay, here's the first condition. We only need the details. Let's go to a question. I only need the details. Let's filter the subject first. The records of the mathematics subject. So here I'm mentioning the mathematics subject. In the subject table, the subject name should be equal to, let me put this attribute within two gray question marks, and here's the attribute, and the value should be equal to mathematics. Let's execute this one. You can see only the marks or records of the mathematics subjects are shown here. Now we have to define the examination date. You can see we only have to find the records under the examination held on this date 2020-7-10. Okay, I'm using AND keyword, and then here I'm mentioning the exam term table. That's the table which records the exam date, and the exam date should be equal to this date 2020-7-10. Okay, let's execute this one. Okay, only the details of 2020-7-10 are shown here. Now you can see it's the answer. Let me show you the whole query. This is the query we used to find these details, and we completed our third part of the question. And let's move on to the fourth one. That's the last part of this question. Arrange the above results in ascending order. Okay, this is a very easy one. We have to use the query and arrange the details or arrange the records in the result in a descending order. Okay, we arrange the details in an ascending order in the second part. Now we have to arrange the details in the descending order. Okay, you know what we have to do. We have to use the keyword order by. Now we have to mention or give it a attribute to make the arrange the details in that attribute. So I'm giving it the attribute mark, like I did in the previous part of the question. So here mark. Now we have to mention the method we are going to arrange, ascending or descending. I show you what we have to what is the keyword we have to use when we are arranging the details in a descending order. it's DESC. You can see DESC. Okay. Now the query is completed. That's the change we have to do in order to make the results arranged in a descending order. Let's execute this one. You can see the highest mark is shown in the first record of the result set, and here's the last result that it is showing the lowest mark in this result set. Now that's the last part of the question. I think that's it for this video. We completed the question 24, and let's see you in the next video, and thank you very much for watching.